be the sci-fi film that these actresses are working on. What are you doing an homage to anything in particular with that one?
I love sci-fi, and I love color, and I had this idea for this sci-fi universe called Candy Floss, which is going to become its own movie in a couple of years. So yeah, it's a good idea. I see. I wanted the film to be everything. So it had to both be science fiction and horror and melodrama and action and you know, sexy stuff and violence and you know, opera. It had to have consume everything in one.
Are you keeping the same cast when you turn it into a film?
We're negotiating.
We just heard the amazing score where the credits talk about Pino Donaggio, who you brought out of retirement. He did the score for Carrie, Blowout, a ton of other films. Talk about why he was the right choice for Private Hell.
So Pino Donaggio is one of the great cinema composers from Italy. And when I was making the film, it was the first time I made a movie not knowing what the sound was going to be. I didn't have the music in my mind. And maybe that was a good thing because I realized, so I shoot in chronologically order. So as I was standing suddenly on this silver set with plastic around me for like $5, I came to the conclusion, well, I always wanted to make an opera, and this is as close as I'll ever get to it because everything is fake, and it had to be fake. So I was like, I'm going to make it an opera. And to do that, you need opera music, but also a film composer that knows how to work both worlds. So you go to Italy, because it's opera. The problem was in Italy, all the composers were dead, except Pino Donaggio, who I had to Google, was alive, and he was in his mid-80s. Now, ironically, I've been using Pino's music since for the last 20 years as his reference music, both on developing or even when I'm shooting, playing his music. It was always very inspiring. And obviously his work with Brian De Palma and Dario Argento and many others are part of our pop culture. So I reached out to him, lived in Venice, very Italian, hair slicked back, big sunglasses, very chilled. Didn't speak a word of English. And I asked him if he wanted to make an opera. And he said, sure, you know, and he was up for it. I said, well, okay, but you know, you're in the mid-80s, you're probably going to die soon, so make it your big deal. And he laughed, and he thought that was funny, so I knew we could work together. And but I was in a bit of a gamble, so I don't know if there's any film directors here or filmmakers, but I like the act of complete failure unless you have one option. So it's a bit like going in on a casino and betting your chip on one. Because for me, creativity, for me, is most exhilarating when you can lose everything. You know, there's this great scene in Once Upon a Time in the West where Henry Fonda shoots a man who has a belt and a suspenders on his pants. He says, never trust a man who doesn't trust his own pants. And that's safety and creativity. You have to be able to, in a situation, lose everything because then it has to work. There's no option for not doing it. And in this situation, I had kind of painted myself into a corner because in opera you make the music first, but here was the last part. It was the last piece of the puzzle. So I had made, you know, a card house. I built the veins. There was a heart, but there was no blood. So I said to Pino, just so you know, I'm betting on you because I have no other options. And if this fails, this movie's going to be the worst film ever made. So it's on you, pal. And I think he very much achieved it. Hopefully you did the same thing, but yeah, that was like.
I wonder if he's gonna do a couple more scores just to prove you wrong. Just to take
Well, he's so amazing because now he's working on a new Brian De Palma movie. So he's back. So is Brian.
Resurrection. Sort of like your own. I wonder if you could talk a little bit. I mean, no, maybe people have heard, you know, that you had a sort of health scare and you came back, and that brought you back to cinema in a way.
I didn't have a health scare, I died. I was dead for 25 minutes. And that does things to you. So before I died, I had come, I don't know of any artists here also, but you get to a certain point in everything you do where you run out of juice. And in my situation, that's what happened. I've always, in my opinion, worked from the notion that it's only once. So you create something only once to create something new again only once. It's a bit like cocaine. The first line, you spend the rest of your life chasing it. We are in Hollywood, so. But that's the addiction you get. You get hooked on the dopamine. And I ran out of juice. I've tripped into streaming, which was exciting because they pay you a lot of dough, and it's amazing canvas of length, but it wasn't what I was looking for. And then I began to work in fine arts, and then I died. And after 25 minutes, I was brought back, which is crazy. It's all black, there's nothing there, so don't like, live your life now. It ain't gonna happen afterwards. So when I came back, I realized that I'd been given a gift, or at least how I chose to look at it. Because I could start over. And I was still young enough to have another 25 years left of my life to be active. And that does something to you, your mind, and especially time, and how you use your time, how you take time, and how you give time. And the reason why I wanted to go back and make movies was not so much for the movies themselves, because there are movies everywhere and they're in all formats. But I think for my kids, I think the world is becoming unhealthy by all the separation and all the dividing and all this living in a digital mirror. Because if we don't live together, we will die. So cinema is one of the most effective places for people to get together and experience together from all different kinds of forms. So to me, it was about how to make something that would bring people together. And I make a certain kind of film, which, you may or may not like, but the point is that it's an experience, and that's what creativity is. When the politicians have stolen all your money and built all the wars, I'm not mentioning any names, art is what brings you together. Creativity is what combines us. And that's, I think, more what I was moving towards than anything else.
I heard you talked about this in relation to the algorithm and sort of how our lives have been kind of really ruled by social media and how we interact with each other online. Can you talk about how that influenced this film?
Well, I have a lot of opinions about the algorithm. It's the enemy of creativity, in my opinion. But I'm fascinated by the idea of scrolling. I'm fascinated by social media in general because I think it does have pushed the boundaries of how we tell stories. Same thing with gaming and technology has opened up many new ways to understand narrative. And that's the most important thing. You always have to push the boundaries. You always have to go further. Because if you don't, it gets stale. And stale in creativity is death. So for me, when I first came to America, I was 8 years old. I was speaking a word of English. And what changed my life was television. The idea that I could click channels and see multiple experiences that I didn't even connect, but the dopamine was incredibly effective. It was like getting me high as a kite. The idea of telling stories in this format now, in a movie, I found very interesting. Almost like the film dictated its own desires. You see, most entertainment, this is my Legos because of my Asperger. But so our lines are of information. It's like a piece of paper with lines that informs you, gives you information, takes information, surprises the information. It's like coding. And it's very easy to manipulate, it's very easy to manufacture, it's very easy to build a kind of bakery. It's like a recipe. But what's interesting about fairy tales, which I began to be very interested in, is that they're as thin as a piece of paper on surface, because it's all the stories are so simplistic. But when you turn the paper, the nuances behind the stories are far more complex, which is why we're always reading fairy tales again and again and again from generation to generation, because it's all about interpretation. And interpretation has no boundaries, it's bottomless. And that's where creativity becomes an experience, because you're no longer just getting information, you're getting codes of signals, you're getting symbols. And all those elements is what travels with you for the rest of your life, because they affect you in a different way, because they're subliminal in a certain way. And they divide and they kind of mutate together with your subconscious. And that is when I think creativity becomes the most powerful weapon in the world.
Your films, I mean, this one and several of your films are very much explosions of color. Can you talk about your use of color and how you create the bisexual lighting that people love?
Yeah, bisexual lighting. Well, lighting is asexual. It's lighting is fetishization of objects, essentially. And I love to fetishize, obviously, both the female and the male bodies. It's a form of fantasy. And I'm colorblind, which means that there are certain things I can't see, but I can feel them, which means I can feel color. But in order to feel them, I have to see them first. But I don't know how you mix colors to get a third color. So the camera team and the post team have to work while in preparation to show me what my options are if I paint this with that and I could get this. And it goes a lot against their logics, because you can't do this, you can't do that to get this, but to me that's only how I can see it. So in a way, it forces everyone else to be colorblind. So it's a very, for me, color is something that is very sensitive.